Oju didn't kill her cousin, but she wished her dead. She said it once, through clenched teeth, into the silence of her pillow, on the night the slap still stung her cheek. And by morning, Chitara's body was cold. That's when the world snapped its neck and turned to look at Oju. But before that morning, before the scream, the handcuffs, the prison gates, there was only a girl. A girl who had learned how to vanish while standing in plain sight. In the town of Aluku, under the smell of hot akara and burning refuse, lived a girl called Oju, but only by those who remembered. Most people didn't. Most just called her that girl in Na's house. She was the one who never went out, never smiled, never asked for anything. A silent shadow with tired eyes. Oju had once had a mother, soft as morning bread. But sickness came like a thief in the dry season, and death took her quietly. Her father had already been swallowed by war. After the funeral, Aunt Na showed up in bright clothes and fake tears, promising to raise Oju like her own child. Instead, she raised her like a punishment. Aunt Na's house had 3 bedrooms. Oju didn't belong to any of them. She slept on a mat in the corner of the corridor, beside the smelly mop bucket. No pillow, no fan, just a thin wrapper and the hum of the fridge that never held food for her. By 5 a.m., her hands were already inside cold water, washing plates, cleaning toilets, polishing Na's precious Italian shoes. She cooked food she never tasted. She ironed uniforms she never wore. And when the school bus came for Chitara, Oju would watch through the gate bars, her eyes swallowing the yellow and green blur as it drove away. Chitara, the golden daughter, the one whose voice could lie and be believed. She was 17, tall, beautiful, with hips she loved to swing and lips always chewing gum. She had 3 phones, a secret boyfriend, and a cruel hobby, making Oju cry. Did you sweep under the chairs, or are you blind again? You're so dirty. I think the rats in this house are cleaner than you. Next time you touch my cream, I'll pour hot water on your face. Oju never replied. She just swallowed her tears like bitter medicine. Because in Na's house, answering back was a crime. But silence didn't keep her safe. When Aunt Na was home, she screamed and cursed. When she wasn't, Chitara reigned like a wicked queen. One Thursday evening, everything changed. The generator had gone off. The house was dark, lit only by the shaky glow of Na's rechargeable lamp. Chitara had just returned from her so-called lesson, smelling like cigarettes and boys' perfume. Her eyes were red, her words slurred. She came into the kitchen where Oju was boiling water for EBA. "Why is there sand in the rice, you idiot?" she snapped, even though she hadn't even tasted it. Oju clenched her jaw. "There's no sand. What did you say?" Chitara's voice rose. "I said there's no sand," Oju repeated, voice shaking. In a flash, the slap came. Sharp, hot, unnecessary. Oju staggered back, hitting the edge of the cabinet. Her cheek burned. "Next time you talk back, you'll sleep outside," Chitara hissed. Oju looked at her cousin, the girl who lived like a princess, who had everything, who took joy in making her suffer. And the words slipped out. "I wish you would just die." Silence. Chitara blinked. "What did you just say?" But Oju had already turned away. Tears ran down her face. She didn't say it again. She didn't even believe it. It was just a stupid, angry thing a tired girl said in the dark. But the next morning, the house was filled with screaming. Aunt Na's voice tore through the air like broken glass. "Chitara! Chitara, wake up!" Doors flew open. Neighbors ran in. Someone screamed. Oju stood at the doorway, heart thudding. Chitara's body was on the floor. Her lips were blue. Her eyes were open but not seeing. A white foam clung to the corners of her mouth. Oju froze. "She's not breathing!" someone shouted. "Call the police!" another screamed. Aunt Na turned to Oju with wild eyes. "What did you do to my daughter?" Oju's mouth opened, but no words came. She hadn't touched her. She hadn't gone near her. But no one wanted to hear that. Not when her wish had come true. The officers came before noon. Their boots were loud. Their questions were sharper than knives. "You were the last person to see her alive? She slapped you last night, right? You said you wanted her dead?" Someone had heard. Maybe the walls weren't deaf after all. The neighbors gathered like vultures. People whispered. Some pointed. One woman said, "That girl was never normal." Another nodded. "I heard she talks to herself at night." Uju didn't cry when they put the handcuffs on. She just stared at the dusty floor and let herself disappear again. The prison was a place where names went to die. They called her murder girl now. Not Uju. Not child. Not orphan. She was just a small number in a long line of forgotten women. Her cell was damp, the bed was hard, and the food was something even dogs would reject. She had no visitors, no voice, no hope. At night, she curled up and whispered to the shadow of her mother. I didn't do it, I swear. But the walls didn't answer. Not until she met Shaddai. Shaddai didn't look like anyone's savior. She was bald, broad-shouldered, and tattooed like the back of a Danfo bus. But when she walked through the prison yard, even the guards gave way. They called her Mama Chain. But to Uju, she became something else, something strange and soft in a place made of stone. Uju met her 3 weeks after arriving in Block D. Until then, she'd kept her head down, mouth shut, eyes dry. She didn't want friends, didn't trust anyone. And in a prison filled with broken women and secrets that bit like teeth, silence was her only armor. But one day, during lunch, a fight broke out in the food line. Someone accused another of stealing Gary. Voices rose. Plates flew. One inmate grabbed a fork and lunged, right toward Uju. She didn't even flinch. She just stood there, too tired to care if pain was coming. But before the fork could land, a voice barked. Drop it, or I'll use your head as a mop. The whole room froze. And there she was, Shaddai. Tall, scarred, wearing the kind of calm that made you feel nervous. She walked between the inmates like a storm with legs and stood beside Uju. You touch her, you touch me, Shaddai said quietly. The attacker backed off. Shaddai stared at Uju, then took her plate and added a piece of dried fish. Eat, she said. You need meat on your bones. And that was how it started. Everyone had heard of Shaddai. They said she once burned down a politician's house, that she'd survived 2 assassination attempts, that she wasn't really a prisoner, just hiding in plain sight. She didn't talk much, but when she did, people listened. Even the wardens lowered their voices. Shaddai had been on death row for 5 years. Her case was on appeal. The lawyers said she had no chance. She said lawyers were cowards. But with Uju, she was different. She let the girl sit with her during yard hours, shared her boiled eggs, asked questions no one else had ever asked. What's your name? Uju. Why you here? They said I killed my cousin. Did you? No. But I said something. The night before. I said I wish she was dead. Shaddai looked at her for a long time. Words are power, but they're not always proof. Uju blinked. You believe me? Shaddai picked her teeth with a chicken bone. I've seen murderers. You're not one. You just carry the face of someone the world forgot. From that day on, Uju followed her like a quiet shadow. She helped wash her clothes, sat with her during prayer hour, picked stones from her rice. And Shaddai, in return, began to teach her things. How to read between people's words, how to breathe through anger, how to hide strength behind silence. But more importantly, Shaddai taught her how not to disappear. You're more than what they called you, she said one day. But they called me a killer. They called me a monster, Shaddai replied, because I protected someone the world wanted to harm. Uju tilted her head. Who? Shaddai didn't answer, just stared out at the prison yard, eyes far away. That night, Shaddai told Uju a secret. I knew someone once, she said. A girl. Like you. Small. Soft. The world tried to ruin her. What happened to her? She became my daughter. You have a daughter? Uju's eyes widened. Outside these walls. She's 6 now. Her name is Bimbo. Uju felt her chest twist. I don't want her to end up like me, Shaddai continued. Surrounded by wolves. That's why I sent her far. Uju nodded. She's lucky. No, Shaddai said. She's in danger. The next day, Shaddai did something strange. She called for one of the prison guards, a woman named Aya Peace, and whispered something into her ear. Later that week, Aya Peace returned with a flash drive and a stack of documents. Shaddai passed them to Uju. Read them. Uju's hands trembled. She hadn't read in so long. But she tried. The first few lines broke her heart. They were text messages. Between Chitara and someone named J. Dose. Omo discoding sweet die loudly crying face. Don't tell my mom I snuck out again. Oh, face with rolling eyes. My chest stay hot, but I go manage face with tears of joy, face with tears of joy, face with tears of joy. More texts followed. Pictures. A toxicology report showing drug overdose. And at the bottom, an old police report Na had buried. One she had begged a bribe to keep hidden. Uju looked up, stunned. She knew. She knew her daughter was using, Shaddai said. She knew Chitara had collapsed once before. But a clean family name mattered more than the truth. Uju's hands shook. So, I didn't kill her. No, Shaddai said, eyes soft. But she let you take the fall. And the world helped her do it. The next few weeks were a blur. Shaddai's outside people. A quiet network of ex-inmates, human rights lawyers, and a church group called Truth Beyond Bars, worked like wind. They filed petitions, sent the evidence, contacted the press. And one morning, just after sunrise, a warden called Uju's name. Pack your things. She thought she was dreaming. You're going home, he said. Uju turned to Shaddai, tears in her eyes. What about you? Shaddai smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. My story is old, she said. But yours is just beginning. Uju hesitated. I don't want to leave you here. You're not leaving me, Shaddai whispered. You're carrying me. She reached into her pillow and pulled out a small envelope. Inside was a photo of a little girl with big eyes and braids. This is Bimbo. Promise me something. Anything. Find her. Raise her. Keep her safe. Let her know I was something more than these walls. Uju nodded, heartbreaking. I promise. Shaddai hugged her tight. For the first time since Uju entered prison, she cried. Not out of fear, but because someone had finally believed her. That evening, Uju stepped out into the sun. Free. She had no mother, no home, no money. But she had one thing she never had before. A name that meant something. And one little girl out there, waiting to be found. The first thing Uju did with her freedom was look for the child of a woman the world had thrown away. Not because she was told to, but because it was the only promise that still made her feel human. Bimbo lived with a woman called Mummy Olori in the crowded part of the city, inside a flat so small the walls felt like they were breathing. Shaddai had arranged it long before her trial, back when she still believed she might get out one day. Uju found the place by following the address on the back of the photograph. She stood in front of the rusted blue gate for a long time, holding her breath. She hadn't spoken to a child in months. She hadn't even smiled in weeks. But when Bimbo opened the door, barefoot and curious, Uju saw the same fire in her eyes that lived inside Shaddai. Who are you? Bimbo asked. Uju bent down slowly. I'm your new big sister. Your mama sent me. They didn't become family overnight. Love doesn't work like that. Not when both hearts were used to loss. At first, Bimbo watched Uju like she might vanish. She clutched her small backpack even in her sleep. But little by little, she started to soften. Uju bathed her, braided her hair, helped her with homework. And when Bimbo had nightmares, Uju held her close and whispered, You are safe. You are home. They moved out of Mummy Olori's place after a few months, into a quiet, faded apartment Shaddai had paid for years ago in a name nobody remembered. The walls were chipped, the windows groaned. But to Uju it was a palace, because for once the door locked from the inside, and no one shouted her name like a curse. Uju went back to school, not to chase dreams, but to finish something her mother had prayed for. She studied in the evenings while Bimbo drew stars on her notebook and ate fried yam beside her. They didn't have much, but they had peace, and in their small corner of the world, that was enough. Uju didn't tell anyone what she had survived. The prison, the lies, the blood on her name. She wore her silence like a scarf, tight but warm. Sometimes, she saw people from her old street. Some turned away, some stared too long, but she never stopped walking. She was no longer the girl in the corner. One rainy morning, a brown envelope arrived at the front door. No name, no stamp, just a folded note inside and a picture. It was of Shaddai, in prison uniform, but smiling. A deep, tired, beautiful smile. On the back of the photo were 7 words. Don't forget what power really looks like. Uju placed it on the wall beside her bed, right above Bimbo's drawing of 2 girls holding hands. Meanwhile, back on MBA Street, silence became a full-time resident. Na had returned home after Uju's release to a street that no longer welcomed her. People who once praised her lace business stopped greeting her. Whispers chased her in the market. Church women stopped sitting near her pew. The shame wasn't just because she had lied. It was because she had nearly buried a child and didn't care if that child ever breathed again. She spent most of her days locked inside. The house was too quiet. Chitter's perfume still lingered in the hallway. Her clothes remained untouched. Her phone, still in the drawer, blinked every few weeks with spam messages and a birthday reminder no one would ever answer. Sometimes, Na would stand in the kitchen and call her daughter's name just once, then break down crying into the sink. But Uju never returned. Not to shout, not to curse, not to ask why. All she sent was a letter. It came in a plain envelope with her name written in simple handwriting. Inside, just a few lines. Ane Na, I forgave you quietly, but not so we can start again. I just needed to let the pain leave me. You don't owe me anything now, but I hope you think of me when the world goes silent. The girl who was always in the corner. I'm not there anymore. Uju. Now read it 5 times. Then she folded it and wept until her scarf slid off her head. Years passed. Bimbo grew. She called Uju Sissy and told anyone who listened that her big sister could cook the best okra soup and fix any tear in her uniform. At school, she won a prize for drawing, the woman who made me feel safe. The drawing showed a girl with a scar on her cheek, holding hands with a smaller girl and walking toward the sun. No one clapped harder than Uju. Not because it was about her, but because it meant Bimbo felt seen, loved, protected, the way every child should. One evening, after dinner, Bimbo asked, "Do you miss your cousin?" Uju paused. The question hung in the air like smoke. "I don't know," she answered honestly. Sometimes I remember her laugh. It wasn't always mean. But mostly, I just remember being afraid. Bimbo nodded slowly. "Will I ever have to live with someone scary?" she asked. Uju kissed her forehead. "Never. You'll only live with someone who sees you." Bimbo smiled. "Like Mama Shaddai." Uju nodded. "Yes, like Mama Shaddai. They didn't build an empire. They didn't become famous. But Uju built something stronger than both. A home. Not the kind with big chandeliers or glass staircases, but the kind where the door stays open, where forgiveness is folded into the food, where pain is listened to, not dismissed. And in that small home, one girl carried the memory of a mother she never met, and another carried the soul of a woman who never got to come home. Because sometimes, the quietest people carry the loudest legacies. Not in books, not in speeches, but in how they choose to love after the world forgets their name. If you have not subscribed to my channel, you might not hear my voice again, but if you are, then you are growing every day. Check my page for more interesting stories. Thanks for watching.